We begin today's show with a big development from the Ukraine war. At least 49 people have died in a Russian attack on a village in Kharkiv. Among them, a 6-year-old boy. Ukrainian officials have called it possibly the deadliest wartime attack on civilians in months. A Russian missile struck a grocery shop. It took place just after 1 p.m. local time, an attack on an ordinary grocery store, that too in a village which is not on a front line in this war. Footage from the site in the immediate aftermath showed bodies strewn across the road. Rescue workers walked through the rubble looking for any signs of life. The people around the area looked dazed, shocked at the sheer brutality. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who was attending a summit with European leaders in Spain, condemned the attack. He wrote on social media, and I quote, "Russian terror must be stopped. All those who help Russia circumvent sanctions are criminals." Zelensky also renewed calls for allies to provide Ukraine with more air defenses so his troops can protect the country from Russian terror. Russia has yet to comment. And as a war-torn country faces Russian terror, there is one question that echoes in the corridors of power in Kyiv. How long does Ukraine have? How long can Ukraine stay in this war? How long does it have before it runs out of ammo to defend itself, leaving it helpless and defenseless? As the war drags on, the West finds itself draining its arsenal of weapons. Alarm bells are going off. NATO wants to ramp up production of weapons. Earlier this week, it urged member nations to do so. Yes, more weapons. But as NATO scrapes the bottom of the barrel to satisfy Ukraine's unending appetite for more arms, it's clear that NATO's own security wall is crumbling. The Western world is struggling with weapon shortages. This is not news, but it gains significance today, especially when US funding for weapons procurement for Ukraine failed to find a place in a stopgap spending bill within the US Congress. Now, uncertainty looms over the future of US aid to Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky has a crisis at hand. He's grappling with Western war fatigue. Ukraine's conflict with neighboring Russia has dragged on for a grueling 20 months. It has put pressure on Western nations to continue supplying weapons to the war-torn country. Ukraine supporters have flooded the country with weapons in a bid to bolster its defenses. So how much has the Western world sent to Ukraine? The US is the largest contributor, having committed $46.6 billion worth of weapons. Next is Germany and the United Kingdom, having pledged nearly $19 billion and $7.3 billion worth of weapons to Ukraine, respectively. Norway, Denmark and Poland follow. In June this year, the US also announced additional security assistance for Ukraine worth $500 million. The military aid from Western nations to Ukraine includes tanks, combat vehicles, air defense systems, long-range artillery, howitzers, anti-tank weapons, drones, etc. It includes sophisticated tanks like the American Abrams tanks, the British Challenger tanks, the German Leopard tanks. They have helped Ukrainian troops fend off Russian aggression to a certain extent. It also includes combat vehicles like the Stryker armored fighting vehicle. These have been used in Iraq and Afghanistan. In air defense systems, the US has given the Patriot missile system. It is highly sophisticated, requires specialized training for Ukrainian soldiers. S-300 missile systems have also been sent. Among long-range artillery is the HIMARS. They are believed to have been central in Ukraine's success in pushing Russian forces back on the south last year. Kyiv has also received drones that have helped in surveillance and targeting. Turkey has sent the Bayraktar TB2 armed drones. These have a track record in Syria and Iraq. And finally, the US has also announced support in providing advanced fighter jets, including the coveted F-16 jets to Ukraine. The Biden administration has sent a substantial amount of equipment through the Presidential Drawdown Authority. Under this scheme, military gear that is already in US inventory is pulled from the inventory and then sent overseas, in this case to Ukraine. The US funding for Ukraine has mostly come from the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, or USAI. But guess what's happening now? According to the US Department of Defense, as of October 3rd this year, there is no more funding left for newly manufactured military hardware. The only hope is some $5.4 billion worth of hardware from the US inventory that can be sent to Ukraine. But what happens once that is gone? Well, the US Department of Defense hopes to replace it with new gear, and the department has about $1.6 billion on hand to accomplish that. But the department is requesting more funding to help replenish its stocks. It has been careful so far in drawing down its own military hardware because it doesn't want to put its own readiness at risk. Now, despite all this, Ukraine continues to ask for more. I mean, the sheer volume of artillery that Ukraine demands is nothing short of staggering. It is not clear how many shells are fired by Ukrainian troops in the war, but a US defense official told American media in July that they typically fire between 2,000 and 3,000 shells per day. This number may have fluctuated, but it gives us an idea into Ukraine's current use of weapons. And it's not just the US that is running low on its stockpile and money for Ukraine. The UK is also short of weapons for Ukraine. Reports say the British military top brass want other countries to fill the gap. But the truth is, few countries are in a position where they can help Ukraine more than they already have. In Europe, Hungary continues to block a 500 million European Union tranche of arms and ammunition. And a European official told another news publication earlier that no EU state can contribute any more weapons from their own stockpiles without endangering their own security. Moreover, the Western tanks and vehicles were supposed to turn the tide in favor of Ukraine on the battlefield. Instead, Russian troops have reportedly turned the battlefield into a graveyard of Western tanks, trucks. The Ukrainian troops suffered heavy casualties during their counter-offensive campaign. The Russian military has shared footage showing destroyed Western equipment abandoned by Ukrainian troops. If modern, sophisticated Western weaponry are yet to make a significant impact on the Ukrainian battlefield, how long does NATO plan to keep supplying them to Ukraine? If they are indeed ramping up production, how much time will it take before Ukraine can actually start using them? In contrast, Russia seems to have swiftly mobilized its own wartime economy to replenish its own stockpiles. So how much time does Ukraine truly have to ensure its survival in this war? Today's incident is a reminder, a stark reminder of how bloody this war can get, and that an unending supply of weapons will only add to more loss of life. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.